What is presence? What is it? What is presence? How dare you talk about presence around me? What is it? What does it mean to be present? Here's what I wrote this morning. Let's see if it resonates. What is presence? During breathwork, there are these moments, I call them tiny eternities, where you arrive into the now so entirely that you disappear. You become pure being. All dualities disappear. You are beingness, beaming in the glow of being, and nothing less or more. At first, it's scary because it's like the illusionary you shatters against the wall of this tiny eternity, breaking down into the vortex of infinity. You'll forgive this foray into poetry, as presence itself is rather indescribable. The pathways and places we have within, because as it turns out, nothingness is hardly nothing at all. And people are mostly comfortable with attempts to describe it until, of course, you call it God. They don't like it when you call it God. Some people don't. I don't mind calling it God. But you can call it presence if that makes you more comfortable. I understand. Excuse me. Perhaps enlightenment is nothing more than swapping the addiction to thinking for the addiction to pursuing presence, or recognizing the superiority of nowness versus the domain of thought, which only exists in the past and the future. And it's rather tedious, the domain of thought, where actual life is replaced by an idea about life, where the eternal is swapped for a concept, where your actual being is replaced by a mind-made construct of who and what you thought you were. So what is presence? What is this tiny eternity? And why does the mind make it so difficult to experience? The mind, or the ego, is an illusionary construct concerned with its own dominion. And so it invests in conflict and judgment, attempting to create a gravitational pull into its non-real reality. Ego and presence are warring factions on the battlefield of our souls, or two opposing operating systems vying for dominion over us all. The ego likes noise and distraction. It likes conflict and judgment. It basks in separation and anger, and it becomes massive in the energy of hatred, or hate, I wrote. Envy and jealousy are its friends, and it drives through illusionary landscapes in the vehicle called fear. Presence, on the other hand, favors quiet, expands in silence, requires absolute forgiveness, refuses judgment and conflict, and demands peace as a barrier to entrance into its domain. And if one can manage to slay all the demons of the ego, they find an opportunity to expand into presence and its energy field called love as the only true reality. This is why a statement like "all there is love" is both true and yet seems so foreign and impossibly idealistic to one who is firmly rooted in egoic reality or unreality. For the two realities we dance between are entirely opposed to one another. So yeah, it's, we have these two operating systems, right? And one is of the mind and thought-based reality, which is what most of us sort of evolve through, hopefully to arrive at this place of presence or actual reality, the idea of that you're, or not the idea, be a place beyond all ideas, a place beyond all concepts, where you're just experiencing beingness. But it's really impossible to ever experience beingness if you're locked in the landscape of the mind and you have all these sort of conflicts going on, and you're yammering, and there's chaos within. So how do you get to that peaceful place where you can experience presence? So let's see, I kept writing. For this describes the spiritual battlefield we are all born into, and life could be described as an opportunity to overcome an illusion of who we thought we were, to be born into the awareness of what we actually are, no different from the infinite source of all things. For when we do arrive in presence, we find ourselves relating not to nothingness, but to a very real somethingness. Somethingness isn't actually a word, as the red line under this note tells me. But I used it anyway, because I'm a rebel. That's why I'm wearing this jacket, to let you know I'm a rebel. Okay, so, and that something seems to be exuding a healing light into our souls, perhaps redefining our nature into its energy field. One could describe it as our souls allowing its light in, allowing its peace to take root, and accessing the power of eternity it holds into the vortex of our being. I like the word vortex a lot. Communing with God, you could say, where all separation ceases to be. So yeah, in presence, there is this experience that you're communing with something. It's not just nothingness. It's the experience of, I mean, again, I don't want to use the word God because it freaks people out, but it's like the light that comes in, it's healing us. It's active, you could say. One could say, now I'm going to bring up Jesus. This is really bad. One could say Jesus came here in part to teach us how to commune with this source, or the source. His instructions laid out perfectly a path to defeat the stronghold of the ego, or the phantom of self-will. Self-will run riot, is what they say in rooms of recovery. When we're deep in our addiction, they call it self-will run riot. Resistance to his teaching is nothing more than ego's attempt to remain the dominant force in a reality that contains no reality at all. Many are uncomfortable with the word God or a pragmatic reference to Jesus, but have no problem with the word presence and would rather avoid the controversy around religious terminology altogether. But they break down to the very same thing, and in the case of Jesus, his teachings are both perfect and undeniable in this regard. How dare I? One may feel more comfortable saying, I'm spiritual but not religious, but they are really only playing games with semantics. And anyway, on the level of words, we are dealing with concepts only, and so we are still in the realm of the twisted mind. Presence itself exists outside of all that. It exists outside of ideas about it. It is a place of no ideas, no words, no stories. It is a place where the Holy Spirit groans on our behalf, someplace beyond all language. Everything else is merely an instruction manual guiding you into its light. Yeah, so the Holy Spirit groans. Like, if you're really in presence, you'll find yourself maybe groaning sometimes. And they say that's like a wordless form of prayer, praying on our behalf. Because if we're just praying from the mind and our words and our concepts, we're still sort of outside of the healing light or presence that we are attempting to go into. So when we get into those moments of presence, groans can happen. You'll find yourself groaning. Don't be alarmed. It's just the Holy Spirit saying, "What's up, bro? I love you." So once you experience that light, it calls you back to it over and over again. The ego becomes vaporous, as do all its schemes. The death of the ego is difficult at first, but with it, the experience of peace comes in, eases one into a new reality, much more real than the old one. And so this letting go of insanity, of division, becomes something like instant relief. All conflicts and stories disappearing into the vapor they always were, where finally you are enabled to meet life where it actually is, in the now. Yes. In Christian terms, this is what it means to be born again. To be born into a new reality, or a sea of love, a holy unity with the very source that gave us the gift of life. And once you arrive there, you can never go back. and never would you want to. So yeah, what happens, I believe, is once you find that presence, the way your thought reality or your ego-based reality is addictive and sort of calls you back into its conflict and its dominion, what can happen is then the presence becomes what you constantly seek and what you try to expand into over and over again. So just that's my ideas this morning. I didn't know what to write about, and I looked through old notes, and I just saw a note I had written to myself: what is presence? So that's an attempt to describe what presence actually is, what it is to me, and I hope that helps you, and I hope that you'll forgive my attire. God bless. See you next time. Bye.